Hello, everyone. My name is Ian King, a National Sports Media Association intern here with Alan Hoshida, the Hawaii Sportscaster of the Year for the year of 2021. Alan, how are you today?
Man, I'm great. And I appreciate you taking the time to bring me on. And I look forward to getting out there. I'm actually going to go out there for the whole event. And I'm really excited and just really humbled for the whole experience.
Congratulations again on winning the award. The sports media industry is something that can be fairly difficult to enter, pretty niche categories. So how did you get your start in the sports media industry as a sportscaster?
So I graduated from San Francisco State in 2011. And then at the time, I didn't want to leave California. You know, you're a California boy. I'm a California boy. It's hard to leave. But so I went and did like the road trip, and I went to all the stations down in Southern California, Monterey on my way. And I wanted to do that. That didn't work out. So I worked at Comcast Sportsnet, which is now NBC Sports Bay Area in California. And I worked there for 4.5, almost 5 years as a PA, AP, learned really, really important things about the industry, about how to be a professional, and worked with some really great people who kind of became mentors and role models for me, even as I was just being a PA and an AP and just learning about the industry. And, you know, a lot of people want to get on TV right away. And that's great. I mean, 100%. If you can, the earlier you can start your career on air is awesome. But I wouldn't change my path, because I think those 4 years in a top 10 market to learn what it means to the pressures of being in a top 10 market. And at that time, it was 2010. I was part of as an intern in 2010 there for the World Series there, and all throughout. And it was kind of maybe the golden era of Bay Area sports. I mean, especially in San Francisco, you had the Giants win 3, the Warriors won their first, 49ers were a yard away from winning a Super Bowl. So I got to experience a lot of really cool things in the start of my career, and I was behind the scenes, stuff that now looking back, I'll never get to, it may never happen. Anyway, so now that happened, and I got to the point where they're like, okay, you're either going to be a producer or you need to go try and be on TV, because we know you want to be on TV. And so I got called into the news director's office, and he said, hey, you need to do what you need to do. And so at that point, I made a reel, which looked great because we had San Francisco studios. So it didn't look like, you know, some studios that you could get out of college. And it looked great. I got a job at Humboldt in Humboldt, California. I was there for about 12 to 13 months. And I was just there for 1 year. It was my first on-air gig, sports reporter up there. And then from there, I went to Eastern Washington at Keeper, KEPR, and I was there for 4.5 years as the sports director. And that was really valuable experience, because you're on air 5 days a week, you're setting the direction of the department. And that's kind of how it kind of went.
Definitely a unique start to your career, a career that you have a long ways ahead of you, and definitely a good start winning the 2021 Sportscaster of the Year award in Hawaii. This award is something where you're both nominated and voted on by your coworkers that do sports writing and sportscasting in Hawaii. So how does it feel that your coworkers voted you for this award?
I mean, it's super humbling, and especially as a guy that isn't from here, you know, not a local boy. Hopefully will one day be viewed as a local boy, because it's only been a couple years. I came in the middle of the pandemic. So for my peers to see me as someone that has maybe embodied what Hawaii is all about, and that spirit, and respected my work, that's really cool. And there's really good people here. And I'd have to say, like, without a doubt, I couldn't do it without my team here at KHON. Sorry, I lost track of what channel I was at the moment, because I went back through the career. But KHON, Rob DeMello, he's the one who brought me here. He's a sports director, and without his guidance, you know, I couldn't be in this position, because I don't even know if I'd get the pronunciations right, because Hawaii is such a unique place that the language, you have to learn the language, and you have to learn the proper way to pronounce things, or else you won't be accepted, because it is a place of culture and a place of family. And it is so, those are all kind of intertwined within sports. And then Christian Shimbuku on our digital side, like, together, I think that's what made us that makes us so great. And I couldn't do this, just like any sports team. You can't do it without the people around you. And so a big part of my success for this award would be through them. And without them, I don't get this award, honestly.
Definitely is a unique place to be a sportscaster. You talked about coming over there during the pandemic. How did the pandemic affect your career and what you do at KHON?
So it was crazy because we going through the negotiation period, right as, and I was in Washington too, where the first uh, coronavirus case was. So it was happening in Washington. We knew about it. And I had just gone on my honeymoon to Japan, like in December. And then, as we know, in January, things in Japan got really bad. So it was just a wild timing. But anyways, to the job side of things, I was going through negotiations and we just had agreed upon it. I just signed my letter of intent, essentially. And then we go into shutdown. The country goes into shutdown. So I call over Lori, our news director here, and I say, hey, is everything good? Like, because I know some stations were kind of putting things on hold, but my paperwork had gone in maybe a week before. So we were good to go. But moving out here to Hawaii, it already is basically moving to another country. So moving out here was a little difficult because not everything was kind of up and to 100%. And all that type of stuff, but we got here. And so it didn't affect this job getting it. But then once I got here, obviously no one knew about Zoom. But Zoom became, and is, as we're doing this right now, is a huge part of the job. And honestly, now it's kind of made things a little bit easier in the sense that, especially for here in Hawaii, where we don't have a pro sports team, but we cover a lot of pro athletes that are from Hawaii or Hawaiian. And those become like our pro franchises, but we can't get out there all the time. So having Zoom has been awesome because if we want to talk to whoever it may be, Colton Wong, Marcus Mariota, and any of those guys, we can hop on a Zoom, which is way easier than trying to get through PR people to set up an in-person thing. So Zoom has been huge, as everyone in the industry will probably say. And then also, during the actual pandemic, we're in the deeps of it. We still had sports every day. We were one of the stations that, still had a sports cast because some of them were cutting back and because of costs or whatever it may be, or there wasn't sports going on. So it was hard to kind of do, but we just did basically a feature every single day, like a 3-minute feature every single day. And it was kind of hard. Like you're doing features on things that aren't happening. So you're doing a feature on how this person is negotiating the pandemic. And a lot of that was that, or how is this new regulation going to affect sports? So it was basically a feature every day, self-contained. And we didn't do a live show for a long time here personally, because we would just do the feature story and package it. And then we didn't do live. I didn't go live here for a studio show, I would say almost like a year into me being here.
Wow, definitely an interesting way to start your career in Hawaii. You talked a little bit about your journey going to a bunch of different places in sportscasting, pretty much all over the country, getting a different taste of California, Washington, now Hawaii. Did you have a favorite season in any of those places covering a specific team that you wanted to talk a little bit about?
A favorite, I don't know. It's hard because each place is so different, but there was a time in my career which was super awesome, is that every year I got to cover a championship, even going back to when I was an intern in 2010 and then 11, 12, all through those golden days, I said, in the Bay Area. And then my year in Humboldt, Humboldt had their first high school state championship team in its county's history. St. Bernard's won. And Humboldt State football went into the D2 tournament, which hadn't been done for 50 years. So there was everywhere I went. And then I went to Tri-Cities in a high school, beat O'Day, Kamaikan beat O'Day in the state championship. And every year I'd seen a state championship or a champion. And so it's kind of hard because I'd been through so many really cool things. And then when I got here, the men's volleyball team, they won their first national championship, which they're in a run right now. And hopefully we'll get another one. That would be pretty cool. So I don't really have my first year in Humboldt was really awesome. And because it was my first year on air, and there's really awesome things happening in Humboldt with St. Bernard's. We knew we were going to be good, and they won the state title. Humboldt State football was really good, like I said. And then also the softball team was number 1 in the country for Division II all year. And so we got to go to Denver for the national championship tournament. So that was really cool. That was an awesome year that I look back and like, wow, that I, I just flip because when things like this happen, I always go back to Al Michaels' book, and he always says, "Don't get jaded." That was one of the things that he took from another sportscaster, and so it always reminds me not to get jaded of all these moments that I've kind of got to see. So I guess that's a long-winded answer saying I don't really have a favorite season. That was a really good year, but every year, that's the great thing about sports. The thing I love about sports is that every year something special happens. Like no matter what it is, something special is going to happen or something memorable. Like maybe 2020 with the pandemic, wasn't special, but I'm sure is never going to forget 2020 and how we had to negotiate that in the sports world and just personally with the job. Like, so I don't know. I can't say one season because every year something special happens that just adds to why you do the job.
Alan, it sounds like you had some really good luck starting out your career, just seeing a bunch of success. Can you talk to me a little bit about when you realized you wanted to be a sportscaster and pursue the sports media industry?
It was pretty early on. I loved watching Sports Center. I loved just stats. My mom would tell you that I was always on looking up stats for things. I love going to games. I just love sports, but I also was a big theater kid and a musical theater kid, to be more specific. And so going into college, my thought was, all right, I could go musical theater. I thought I was decent at it, but, I was also in a small town. And so who knows how actually good I was. My parents wanted me to go that way at one point, but I thought, why not do something that kind of marriages both of my loves, which is performing, being in front of people. I never was afraid to public speak, as you probably can tell from my long-winded answers here, and then sports. So I kind of married them both, and I went into school at San Francisco State undeclared, but I had a pretty good idea that I wanted to get into the broadcasting department over there. And so I'd say like 17 is when I decided that that's what I wanted to do. And I ended up getting into the Becca department at San Francisco State, Broadcast Electronic Communication Arts. Shout out to them. It's an awesome department. They have a lot of really great people in the industry. So that's when I kind of decided, and I'm just one of the lucky ones. Honestly, I know I'm lucky that's what I wanted to do. And I got to do it, and I'm doing it. And so it's special when you think of that, you want to do something and you kind of achieve that. And now it's always resetting those goals, right? What's the next thing that you want to do?
Alan, speaking of having achieved your goals and becoming a successful sportscaster, do you have any advice? My last question for you. Do you have any advice for aspiring young sportscasters on how to get to where you are right now?
I would just say, and I was thinking about this because I assumed this would be a question. I would say just find yourself, find the person, the broadcaster, the journalist, the host, or whatever you want to do. Find yourself and what you want to do. Find your own voice. A lot of people are going to tell you this is what they see as a sportscaster. This is what you need to look like on TV. This is how you should do your hair. This is how you should sound. Obviously, I have a beard, and that's not always something that's accepted. But I knew that I wanted to have a beard, and I liked the way that I looked with a beard, and so I've kind of pushed for that. But back, like 20 years ago, that would never be the case. Like I'd have to shave like now, like tomorrow. But also on that is just your voice. You look at these people, you look at your role models, and they're great to have. Like I love Dan Patrick, I love Ernie Johnson, I love what they do, but I'm not them, right? You're not those people. So Stuart Scott's another great one, who influenced and inspired so many people, and inspired way people call games or highlights and stuff like that. But don't be those people. Let them inspire you, and then you find yourself in that and grow from that. And something for me is, I know I'm a fast talker. I know that I also am never really going to have a fully clean show where I'm not going to stumble. I'm not going to say a hiccup on something, but also that's human. We can't be robots. And so you want to strive to be great, and you want to strive to be clean, and you want to strive to have a presence about you, but find what that presence is. And when you can find that, and when you can say, that's what I want to be, I think that's when you're going to have your most success. And don't let other people tell you what they think you should be. You need to find out what you need to be. And even if these people are well respected, take what they're saying, but apply it to yourself, and don't let them try and mold you into something that you don't want to be.
some really good advice for aspiring sportscasters out there, Alan. Thank you so much for joining me again. Alan Hoshida, the 2021 Hawaii Sportscaster of the Year. Thank you for joining me. Have a good one.
Appreciate it, Ian.